Daniel Jacobsen is the most underrated center in the Big Ten.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host. I am Nick Arvin, and we have another fun episode of Locked On Boilermakers Friday episode of Locked On Boilermakers coming your way today. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda. Move and be moved. So let's go ahead and jump right into things today because here's the topic of today's episode. After UIndy, after Kentucky, I think it's hard to debate. Right now, Daniel Jacobsen is playing the best basketball out of any of the centers on this lineup, whether that be in Oscar Cluff. We saw Liam Murphy jump in. Raleigh Burgess, he is redshirted now. So right now, Daniel Jacobsen, he has really stepped up during these exhibitions. He's proved that he is one of the most underrated centers in the nation right now. And I think that he's the most underrated center in the Big Ten because people really forgot about Daniel Jacobsen because last year he got hurt. He suffered a leg injury very early in the season, and Purdue wasn't really able to utilize them the way that they had expected them to be able to use that 7-footer as a freshman. And when we talk about sophomore leaps in college basketball, that term gets thrown out a lot, whether that be in the media, people talking about what guy is going to take that leap from freshman year to sophomore year. And talking about Purdue this year, there were a lot of candidates, whether that be a CJ Cox or a Jakari Harris, who has certainly kind of fell into that role. But Daniel Jacobsen has absolutely taken a sophomore leap. And a lot of that is because he wasn't able to play last year. That injury last year really set him back, but I think he's better for it. I think that injury really allowed him to focus in on developing as a big man, on developing that offensive side of his game, because that was the thing about Daniel Jacobsen. We knew that he would be a great rim protector. We knew that he would be solid inside, being a good defensive center at 7'4". It's hard to shoot past that guy, but where the question marks lied was surrounding the offensive side of the ball for Daniel Jacobsen. Would he be able to develop a jump shot? Would he be able to move guys in the paint? Because he is gigantic in terms of height, but he is kind of a skinny frame. So there were question marks on what he would be able to do offensively. But so far within these exhibitions, he's absolutely surpassed the expectations. I'll pull up the graphic now, but through 2 exhibitions, Daniel Jacobsen has been really, really good. He has 19 points. Against UIndy, he was 5 for 5, which was incredible. He had 10 points in that one, 9 points against Kentucky. The number that really sticks out to me is that field goal. That percentage is 90%, 9 for 10 from the field, and 13 rebounds. That's something else that really sticks out to me, because when you bring in a guy like Oscar Cluff, the thought process behind bringing him in was, well, Oscar Cluff, he can rebound like not a whole lot of people in the portal can. And that was really what you wanted to address this summer following losing in the Sweet 16 to Houston. You have your pieces, and you felt like rebounding was the only thing missing for Purdue. And they do bring in Oscar Cluff. But, I mean, Daniel Jacobsen, he's surpassed him rebounding. He's out-rebounded him through 2 games. And, yes, it's still early, and I'm not going to talk bad about Oscar Cluff on this episode. That's not what I'm trying to achieve. But what I'm trying to achieve is to tell you guys that Daniel Jacobsen, if he's able to develop into an elite rebounder, which, I mean, against UIndy, a solid amount of rebounds. I mean, it is UIndy, but he's had the same amount of rebounds against Oscar Cluff against Kentucky as well. My point being, if Daniel Jacobsen can develop as a rebounder, this is a guy that Big Ten teams are going to fear because he has it all. When you talk about going 9 for 10 from the field, That's great on the offensive side of the ball. That shows that you can be efficient offensively, and that's something that Daniel Jacobsen, that's one of the question marks, like we talked about. Rebounding, that's another question mark. We knew that he wasn't going to be the best rebounder, but if he's the best rebounder on your team from that center spot, he's too valuable not to utilize. He has all the pieces, and this guy's he's not bad defensively. He's not bad offensively. He's proven that he can really be an asset on both sides of the ball. So you definitely have to utilize Daniel Jacobsen this year. And I think that teams are definitely going to find out that Daniel Jacobsen, he's not just a sophomore center. He's not just a 7-foot guy that you bring in for rim protection. Daniel Jacobsen has really developed into an offensive guy, and he's also developed as a rebounder. And I think that's what you asked Daniel Jacobsen to do. That's where he needed to develop. And the fact that this guy broke his leg, went through everything that he went through in terms of recovery, getting back on the court, and within that recovery, he's gotten so much better. He's improved exponentially. I think that really speaks a lot to Daniel Jacobsen. And I think that's a mentality that you want to have in your big man, not just this year, but going into the future, because presumably Daniel Jacobsen is the future at center for Purdue, not just this year, but going into the future. I think that Daniel Jacobsen, he may take that role as the starter this year, depending on what Oscar Cluff does, but definitely going into the future when Cluff graduates, Jacobsen will be the center of those future lineups. So the fact that you're able to develop him this year with Braden Smith as the point guard, with all those seniors on this roster, it's really a good opportunity for him to step in, develop, and continue to get better. But I think that when we talk about development, especially with Daniel Jacobsen, I think that he's definitely developed quicker than a lot of people may see surface level. I think that he's a lot further advanced in terms of his development than what a lot of people expected or thought that he would be, especially with that injury derailing his freshman year. I can't speak highly enough about Daniel Jacobsen. I thought that he was really good this offseason, but what he's done so far in these exhibition games has really, really impressed me and has made me realize that Daniel Jacobsen, he is extremely underrated. Daniel Jacobsen will be fighting for a starter role this year. I really think that there's no ceiling for what he can be, because at 7'4", with all the length that he has, that's a prototype at center that's what you want. And when you talk about his ability to shoot the ball, that developing, oh my gosh. If we can get a jump shot on a guy who we saw those lobs against UIndy, we saw what he was doing. Just incredible stuff. He has the body for it. Absolutely. If he can continue to grow into that body, if he can continue to develop, like I said, I don't think that we are hearing enough about Daniel Jacobsen right now. I think he's going to continue to impress. And I think a lot of that kind of falls onto the U19 experience that he got this year. Yes, he was hurt, but he's played in 2 FIBA World Cups now, where he's gotten a lot of experience against the best of his peers. And we talk about Omer Mayer in terms of developing in that World Cup a lot. But I really do think it's a good opportunity that doesn't get talked about a lot, where every summer these college guys have the opportunity to battle up against the best in other nations. And Jacobsen, he was able to do that. He won gold with America, and obviously he didn't play as much as he's going to play for Purdue, because there was a lot of talent on that team. He definitely developed. He was able to get some time playing on the court, even when that injury did derail his freshman year. That opportunity for him to continue playing throughout the summer, to continue to get reps and practice in high-intensity environments and very competitive games, I think that definitely gives Jacobsen an advantage, and I think that really helped him develop over the summer. And still, even just being alongside Matt Painter and rehabbing, Daniel Jacobsen had a lot of opportunities this summer to quit, to give up, to say, yeah, I broke my leg. I don't need to work as hard as other people do. He could have done that. He could have taken the easy way out, but he didn't. Daniel Jacobsen took this summer, he took breaking his leg, and he continued to work. He continued to get better. He continued to develop where people doubted. People have doubted his rebounding ability, his offensive ability. He continued to get better at the positions where people said he was bad at, and that is why Daniel Jacobsen is so underrated. He continues to work, and when you're 7'4" and you've got a guy with a mentality like Daniel Jacobsen continuing to work from a young age, it's going to be hard to stop this guy. And for Big Ten teams, Daniel Jacobsen is going to be a name that will instill fear into them going into the future. But I absolutely believe that he deserves a role this year on this team. I think he deserves the starting role because when you have someone that gives you the production he gives you on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, he's not a liability at all. Daniel Jacobsen, he's impressed me. We'll talk about where he fits in to the starting lineup, what that starting lineup will look like, and what the rotation will look like for Purdue going into the regular season next week. We're going to talk about that one. Stay with us. That's here next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. For Purdue against UIndy, that guy was, guess who? Daniel Jacobsen, making 5 out of 5 of his shots. He really proved that he can move the game forward from that center spot. And so can Mazda. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda. Move and be moved. In our last segment, we talked about Daniel Jacobsen, what he can be for Purdue, not just this year, but moving forward, how underrated that guy is. But how does he fit into Purdue's rotation this year? Well, I feel like that's going to be a lot more of a conversation than people are even having right now. I think the conversation between Daniel Jacobsen and Oscar Cluff, how those guys rotate, is going to be a key storyline going into this year because it's just a dialogue, especially when Daniel Jacobsen really plays well, because I expect him to play really well. And with Cluff kind of struggling right now, that dialogue is definitely there. And I feel like that conversation does need to be had because although Oscar Cluff, he's the high quality transfer that gets brought in, Daniel Jacobsen, he deserves that starting spot, in my opinion. And I do think that he deserves the spot, but I think that he should earn it. I think that he needs to continue to play well, continue to earn it, continue to play hard. But if he continues to do those things, play the way that he has played lately, I don't see any reason why Daniel Jacobsen shouldn't be the starter on this team. But where else is this rotation kind of in question? Because I mean, even going into the regular season on Tuesday, I don't feel like all of these spots are necessarily set in stone yet, especially when you look at guys like 7 through 12 trying to crack that rotation. I think the starting lineup, I mean, there's still 2 spots open, but it's relatively set. We did see in the exhibition games that the starting lineup Matt Painter went with was Braden Smith at the point guard spot, Fletcher Loyer at the 2 or 3, I guess, small forward, CJ Cox at the 2 shooting guard spot, TKR at the 4, and Oscar Cluff at the 5. Like I said, I think that Daniel Jacobsen deserves the opportunity to start in the first regular season game of the year against Evansville just because of how well he's played. Alongside that, I believe Ja'Cory Harris has also earned his opportunity to start at that small forward position alongside Fletcher Loyer on the wing. I think that he has really earned his chance. I think he's been very efficient so far. So that's kind of my starting lineup as we go into the regular season. That being point guard Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer at the shooting guard position, Ja'Cory Harris at the 3, TK at the 4, and Oscar Cluff at the 5. But let's talk a little bit about that rotation because that's where the conversation kind of gets interesting because, like I said, there are some guys still certainly looking for opportunities to fill into that rotation. I think that the guys that absolutely have cemented their spot, if Oscar Cluff isn't starting, he's coming off the bench, and he's going to be one of the first guys that subs in, much like Jacobsen did during the exhibition games. I think that CJ Cox is kind of like that 6th guy off of the starting lineup. I think that's honestly better where CJ Cox can be that 6th starter instead of Ja'Cory Harris, just because Ja'Cory Harris, he's so much bigger. He provides you so much on the defensive side of the ball. I think if you can give CJ Cox that opportunity to be like that sixth man, that's a really good opportunity for CJ Cox. I think he can play that role really well and earn his opportunity to play really good basketball and get that starting spot next year. So that's kind of where I see CJ Cox at. And then Oscar Cluff, whether he starts, comes off the bench, this team is better when Oscar Cluff is playing good basketball. When he's rebounding the ball at an elite level, I think that Purdue, they're going to be a much better team. So no matter what role Oscar Cluff falls into this year, no matter how well Daniel Jacobsen plays, I hope Oscar Cluff plays well as well, because this team is going to be better for it when Oscar Cluff is good. So we know his role is kind of set. I mean, he's not playing his best basketball right now, but he's good enough where he's going to rebound. He's either going to be the starter or he's going to be that kind of seventh man coming off the bench, filling in for Daniel Jacobsen. Omer Mayer, I think we kind of know what his role is as well. He's going to be operating that bench unit with the ball in his hand. When Braden Smith isn't on the court, Mayer fills in. He's going to be a guy for Purdue where I think he can really be productive. He can give Purdue a lot of opportunities to last year, Purdue, they didn't have the depth that they have this year. And I think Mayer is a big part of that conversation because Braden Smith, he's the National Player of the Year favorite. When he comes off the floor, Mayer, he can step right in, and you're not going to have as big of a drop-off as you would have had last year, say, when Braden Smith came out of the game. So I think that's where Omer Mayer, he's the best for you this year, being able to fill in for Braden Smith. Give your team opportunities to not struggle scoring. I mean, it wasn't great in the exhibitions, but he's going to continue to improve. That's a big thing I do want to make mention, that the exhibitions, they don't mean everything. It's exciting to talk about because we're getting into the regular season, but guys are going to struggle in the exhibitions that aren't going to struggle going into the regular season because, I mean, it's just that guys are still getting loose, getting used to different systems. We saw that with TKR, where he's been getting used to a different role and he struggled a little bit early on. It's exhibitions. These guys are going to continue to improve. I have no worries about where this Purdue basketball team is as of right now. And I do want to mention, before we get into the end of this rotation, Kentucky lost today against Georgetown. This video will come out in the morning, but when I'm filming it right now, they lost to Georgetown. And I just want to make mention that that kind of just proves that exhibitions aren't everything, because I think Kentucky, they will be just fine. They have plenty of talent. But for Kentucky, a lot of the fans, they kind of jumped on Purdue, said that Purdue was going to struggle because they lost to Kentucky at Rupp. And that was kind of untrue, I would say, if they lose to Georgetown, because there's just a lot of experimentation that goes on. A lot of people, you're not in the shoes of a college basketball head coach. You don't understand exactly what's going on in terms of what these guys want to do. So exhibitions, they're not end all be all. I just do want to make mention of that. Kentucky, they do lose. So I'm not worried about Purdue. I'm not worried about Kentucky. I think all these teams are going to be just fine. It's still extremely early, and these teams are going to be able to develop throughout the year. Someone I think that is going to be able to develop throughout the year for Purdue is Jack Benner. And that's someone who I think is also going to crack Purdue's rotation this year. Benner, I don't know about him at the power forward spot because he was in there with Cluff and Jacobsen at one point, and he didn't rebound the ball extremely well. He just looks so small compared to power forwards. That kind of makes me a little bit concerned. But I think Jack Benner can be great for you offensively if he can get that three-point shot down. I think he's a guy that can develop for Purdue. I don't know if he'll be the biggest contributor this year, but going into next year and even at some points this year, he'll get minutes. Jack Benner, he'll be pretty solid for Purdue this year. Anton West has struggled. He made some shots in the second half against UIndy, but I just don't know what's going to happen with him in terms of defensively. He just looks like he's kind of out of place. I don't know. Anton West, if he can shoot the ball well, maybe he has a role. But the last person I do want to talk about before we get into Purdue versus Michigan is Liam Murphy, because that's the last guy that there's kind of a question mark whether he can crack that rotation or not. And I think that he can, especially if he can provide you opportunities to play at that power forward or maybe even a center position, because Liam Murphy, he can shoot the ball better than almost anyone in the nation. And I really do think that given the opportunity, he can play Solid offensively. The defense does need to develop for Murphy, but I think given the opportunities, he can be a high plus level guy that can give you a big body that can shoot the ball, be a 3-and-D type of guy if he can develop as a defender this year. I think we will see some of Liam Murphy. I think that he'll step in, find some success. How much we see, I'm not sure. That's all up to Coach Matt Painter, but I do think that Liam Murphy proved against UIndy that he can play a role. He can fit a certain position well enough that makes him worth playing in the regular season. But we'll have to see. Regular season play starts up Tuesday against Evansville. We'll definitely be covering that. But I'm going to talk Purdue football here in this next segment. They take on the Wolverines of Michigan. That'll be a tough game. We'll see. Does Purdue have any chance? I don't know, but we'll talk about it here next. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Purdue, Daniel Jacobsen, he delivered in a big way against UIndy. He was flawless from the field, shooting 5 for 5 on the day, rebounding the ball at a really good level. If you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Daniel Jacobsen is on a streak. And just like Jacobsen delivered for the Boilermakers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you can save every Saturday when you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score to next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Purdue versus Michigan is this Saturday, and if you're not watching it, I don't necessarily blame you because Purdue, they're in a pretty rough spot in terms of that football program. They've dropped 6 straight, haven't won a conference game in about over 2 years at this point. Just really struggling right now. And against Michigan, I must say that I'm not going to get too tricky with this one. I think that Michigan will win this game because I think that they're just the better team. I mean, you can look at records. You can look at Michigan being 6-2 while Purdue is 2-6. Or you can look at Bryce Underwood, who's been much more consistent, being more safe with the football, not turning the ball over compared to Ryan Brown. There are a lot of things that Michigan does better than Purdue. And like I said, I don't want to get too tricky with this one. I think that Purdue will lose this game. Michigan, they come in as 21.5-point favorites at home. I honestly think that's a little bit low. I do think that Purdue is quite outmatched in this game, but I do want to see Purdue really show up. I don't want to see them give up like they did at a lot of like they did at a lot of times last year. We did see under Ryan Walters that these Purdue teams would give up in big games if they weren't playing good football last year, and that was something we saw this year. I mean, you're 2-6. You don't have much left to play for except for pride. And I do feel like that's kind of a big thing because this program needs a little bit of pride. They need something to play for. And against Michigan, you don't have much in terms of playoff aspirations or bowl aspirations, but you do have your pride. You have the ability to say that we're going to build into next year and we're going to have something to hold going into next year for Purdue football. We have something positive. And I'm not saying that Purdue, they need to go into Michigan. They need to go into Ann Arbor and win this one. But I want to see them play competitive football. That's kind of been the key word of the season. We've seen that, but they haven't been able to hold a fourth quarter, or they haven't been able to play 4 quarters well enough in order to get those wins. So for Purdue this game against Michigan, I just want to see them play competitive football. I'm not expecting them to win. I just think that Bryce Underwood, he's been so good when you look at him only throwing 2 interceptions on the season compared to Ryan Brown's 7. I mean, that's kind of the difference there. And Purdue, they're 0-5 in Big Ten play. Michigan is 4-1 in Big Ten play. So I really don't see a whole lot in this game that tells me that Purdue has a huge opportunity to upset them. Maybe they keep it competitive. Maybe they keep it close for the first half. I could see that. I think that this team is good enough to do that. However, I don't think that this team is good enough by any stretch of the imagination to pull out a win like this. But I want to go over the rest of the games. I'm going to go ahead and pick Michigan to win in this one. Let's go 31-10. 21 points. I'll give Purdue the slight cover at 21.5. But let's talk about the other games on the Big Ten slate this weekend. Penn State versus Ohio State. Without James Franklin, I don't think they would have won with James Franklin. I don't think they win without James Franklin. Ohio State is the best team in the nation for a reason. They'll cover 19.5. Ohio State wins that game. I have Illinois beating Rutgers. I think Illinois will rebound. They're just too good. 5-3, not the year they wanted. But like I said, they still have stuff to play for. Illinois will beat Rutgers. Maryland versus Indiana. Francisco Mendoza has really cemented himself as a Heisman candidate as the Hoosiers have continued to roll. Mendoza has 24 touchdowns on 3 interceptions this year. Playing Maryland. Maryland, they've been surprising, but dropped a couple games lately, 1-3 in Big Ten play. I think Indiana gets this one done. I think Indiana finishes out the year undefeated, to be honest with you. Going Michigan, Minnesota. Minnesota, they're a team where at home we thought that their focus would be running the ball this year with Darius Taylor, and that hasn't been the case. As Drake Lindsey, he's really stepped up. Purdue, they had a good opportunity to take down Minnesota at home, and they weren't able to do that. They struggled going on the road. They really maintained that lead for 3 quarters, but they kind of blew it towards the end. They lost to Minnesota. I think Minnesota is a decent football team. I think they're a better football team than Michigan State, and I think that they'll win this game at 2:30. We talked about Purdue, Michigan, but just once again, I think that Michigan, obviously, they're a better football team than what Purdue's at right now. They have a lot more consistency in their operation. I think that they will improve to 7-2 on the year with a big win at home over Purdue. And then the final game of the day, USC at Nebraska. USC, they're 4.5-point favorites, and I must go with them. I know Nebraska's at home. I know that Matt Rule, he signed his extension today. There's conversations where Nebraska may pull that upset, but I think that USC is too good. They have 2 losses on the season, but Jaden Mayava, he's still that guy. 2,000 yards already. 15 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I still think that he's extremely talented. I don't know where USC goes right now with 2 losses, but I do think that they'll beat Nebraska. I think that that'll be a quality win for them, and they'll try to get their season back on the track. But overall, just going to be a fun weekend. For college football next week, we've got Purdue basketball regular season play starting up for the Boilermakers at home in Mackey. It's going to be a fun week, and you can catch all of that here on Locked On Boilermakers. I appreciate every single one of you guys that watch. Thank you guys. If you guys want to like, subscribe, comment, it would help us out a ton, especially if y'all are just now seeing us. Thank you guys for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. For your second listen, consider checking out Craig Sheeman with Locked On Big Ten. He provides the best breakdowns of the best conference in college sports, from the championships to just the weekly games. Craig Sheeman is that guy. So check out Locked On Big Ten. And as always, boiler up, hammer down.